What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our 2022 predictions. The Florida Gators are up next. Here are some of the predictions for Florida. You see the FPI has them at 6.9 and 5.1, so about 7 and 5. Not really giving them any chance to win the East. FPI really is all in on Georgia, I think. Athlon has them at 7 and 5. The over/under is at 7.5. So yeah, looking at Florida, 7 and 5 seems to be the number. Maybe 8 and 4 if you go over that 7.5. But yeah, 7 and 5, 8 and 4. That seems to be where everyone is predicting this Florida team. I'm kind of in the same boat. You look at this team. I think they're better than a lot of people think. I think when you look at the starting lineup on this team, they can match up with pretty much anyone in the SEC outside of maybe Alabama, maybe Georgia. But their starters are pretty good. I think they do lack a little bit of depth, which could hurt them later on during the season because they just haven't recruited at the level of, say, a Georgia or an Alabama. But the talent is there. You know, the starters look pretty solid. Not a whole lot of question marks really there. Again, except for the depth. They added some nice transfers. And again, it's going to be about Anthony Richardson. I know he's getting some hype for being, a Heisman candidate or something like that. If he is, Florida's going to be at least the second best team in the East. If he is pretty good, they're going to have a pretty good season. And if he's not that great, then it could be a really rough year because you could see some issues later on down the stretch, again, with depth being maybe a bit of a concern for this Florida team. So let's get into it here, and let's start with the schedule here, taking a look at that. Of course, they play Utah in the non-conference. That's going to be a big one there. Can't wait to see what happens in that game. LSU, they play every year out of the West, and they'll have Texas A&M this year out of the West. So no Alabama, that's the good news. But on the road at Texas A&M, that's not an easy game there at all. But let's start with Utah. A Utah team that's going to be really good this year. I think they're a top 10 team. They have a lot coming back. They have a great coaching staff. They've proven that they can get it done there at Utah. But if you watch, I did my Utah predictions, I guess, a couple of weeks ago. And in that video, I talked about this game. I think the home field advantage for Florida, the playing at home, and not just the crowd, but the heat and the humidity. This is early September. I mean, it's going to be, even for a night game, it will be pretty warm down there. You also have the unknown. How is Billy Napier going to use all these players at Florida? Yeah, you might have some film on him from Louisiana, but you don't really have that with him at Florida and how everything is going to look there. So I don't, it's going to be tough for Utah maybe to prepare for this game and know exactly what they're going to get. I've looked back the last couple of years, and first-year head coaches have done pretty well in these early season games. I think a lot of things point towards Florida. Although I'd take Utah as the better team on a neutral field, I would definitely take Utah. I think there's going to be just enough with that home field advantage and a little bit of unknown where Florida is able to find a way to get a big win and knock off Utah. So I do have them winning that game and starting 1-0. The next week they'll play Kentucky. Kentucky's going to be a top 25 team this year, I feel like. But it's kind of similar to Utah. I think on a neutral field, I'd take Kentucky in this game. But at Florida, home field advantage, a little bit of unknown with Billy Napier here at Florida. I think that's just enough for Florida because they've got the athletes. Again, you look at their starters, they can match up with most of the teams really in the SEC for sure. So I think they can match up with Kentucky pretty well. It'll be a great game. Home field advantage makes a difference. And Florida, I think, will win this game. So I've got them starting off 2-0 before playing USF. Shouldn't be too much of a challenge here. I think they will roll in that one. And I've got them starting off 3-0. Next game on the road at Tennessee. This will be a good one. Tennessee coming into this year with a little bit of hype. That offense we know is going to be really good. The defense, maybe still some question marks there. This one I think is going to be a great one, though. Back and forth, probably a shootout type game. But this time the home field advantage goes against Florida. This will be at Tennessee. Loud crowd, huge game early in the season. I'm going to go with the Vols. I think Tennessee outscores Florida. They win that game. Florida then bounces back and beats Eastern Washington to move to 4-1 before playing Missouri. Missouri next at home for Florida. This one, I think, will be a pretty competitive game. Missouri's not going to be terrible this year, but I do think Florida is clearly the better team. So I think we will see Florida kind of pull away in the second half and take care of business. I've got them beating Missouri. That's going to put them at 5-1 before playing LSU. Really talented LSU team. Of course, we don't know a lot about them with a new coaching staff and a ton of transfers coming in. How will it all come together for LSU? We don't know the answer to that, so it's a game that's very tough to predict. It's tough to really predict all of LSU's games because we just don't know how good they're going to be. I think, though, talent-wise, LSU does have an advantage. I think they have just enough to go on the road. Some experienced quarterbacks, really a couple of options there that you look at for LSU. Someone's going to step up for them. I've got LSU beating Florida, and I think Florida will lose their second game. And this is the tough stretch right here. LSU, Georgia, and Texas A&M. They'll play Georgia next. I talked about it earlier. You know, the starters for Florida, they can match up pretty well with Georgia, but over time throughout a game, the depth of Georgia, I think, will wear them down. They just have so much more talent on the roster. I'm going to go with Georgia to win this game. They knock off Florida and put them at 5-3. And it's the same thing with Texas A&M. You look at the talent they have. It's going to be young talent this year, but they will have a lot of guys that play, a deep, talented group. Plus, this game is at Texas A&M. That makes it pretty tough for Florida. I think this will be a really tough matchup for them. Texas A&M is a team that's going to be better in November than they are in September. Don't want to play them late in the year, but I think that's going to get them. I think 3 losses in a row. So Florida starts off 5-1, looking good, but then they hit this really tough stretch and they lose 3 games in a row. South Carolina up next on November the 12th. Home game for Florida. Now this will be a good one. This will be a really good game. I think this will be a one-score game, a game that comes down to the wire, and it's really a toss-up for me. But I think home field advantage will be the difference. Florida will win this game. That's my prediction. But, again, it's a coin flip. Wouldn't be surprised at all if South Carolina was able to win that game. Home game for Florida, though, that'll be big. Vanderbilt next on the road. Do you really go on the road when you play at Vanderbilt? There'll probably be as many Florida fans there as there are Vanderbilt fans. Vandy's not going to be very good. I don't see any reason to think that they would be really improved much at all from where they were last year. Florida, definitely the more talented team, the better team. They win this game and move to 7-5. Final game of the year on the road at Florida State. Going to be, I think, a really good one this year. Florida, of course, has done pretty well in this rivalry as of late. But this time it's on the road. A very hungry Florida State team, motivated team. Of course, both teams will be motivated. It is a rivalry game and all that. But I think this year Florida State gets them. I'm going to go with the Noles playing at home, knocking Florida down to 7-5. But again, when I do my predictions, it's really all about that record, not each individual game. Maybe they beat Florida State, but they lose to Utah or lose to Kentucky. There are a lot of different ways that this thing could go for Florida. But at the end of the day, I think the record will come out at 7-5, which is really right in line with the other predictions. That's my prediction, though, for 2022 for the Florida Gators.